right, got things a little bit better organized for all of you. So here we have a few of the other leading brand SD cards that are out there in the market. We have an Oni. This is a 128 gigabyte SD card. I bought this at Walmart a few years ago. This is a 64 gigabyte SanDisk Extreme. And then, of course, we have some of the lower quality ones. These are the SanDisk Ultras. This is a 200 gigabyte. I don't think they make these anymore. This is your standard 256. A 512 Samsung Pro. These are the newer versions compared to the Samsung Evos that they used to make. I'm not sure if I know that you can still buy one of these, but I'm not sure if they're really in production anymore. And then, of course, we have one of the brand new ones here, which is a Samsung USB drive. This is a 256. Let me do it this way. This is a 256 drive. Bought this a few days ago, actually, so it's pretty cool. So the importance of this video is we're going to talk a little bit about degradation, use of some of these SD cards and storage file sizes, and especially in regards to retro gaming. You guys know there's a lot of people making images and so forth, but the problem that comes up is, hey, I have a 128, I burned an image, it doesn't work, or I had my SD card for a couple of years, and now all of a sudden it's failing on me. Like, what gives? Like, what's happening? And so previously, I know that we've kind of talked a little bit about this on the channel, is all of these different cards and storage devices have something to offer. And unfortunately, as a consumer, you don't see any of this stuff listed on any of the boxes. Now, sometimes they do, but typically you have to go directly to, let's say, maybe a Samsung, Sony, Western Digital, or SanDisk website in order to see some of these additional benefits. Like, for example, I don't have any of these devices in front of me, but the ones I'm about to mention, such as, I think it's a Sony card, the ones that usually cost like maybe $200 or $300, you can find them in this particular file size. However, the reason why they cost so much is because they're made for higher end use. They're not going to fail on you after so many read and writes. They won't suffer as much degradation. Some of you, I've bought some SD cards on Amazon, listened to a YouTuber, bought them. They were very low quality, and after 2 or 3 weeks, and then maybe even a couple of months, they totally failed on me. They suffered degradation. They were of such poor quality, and I would never go that route again. And so this right here is a Samsung 500 gigabyte SSD. It's a T7. I'm not sure of the actual specs on this, but all these cards in storage devices do have separate ratings for them. You guys can check them out on the website. But this has an actual file size of 465 gigabytes. So out of that 500. And over here we have 3 different Samsung devices. This one here is a 500 gigabyte. I think this one is about 466 actual file size usage. That's very important to remember. And then, of course, I have 2 different versions of the Samsung T7. Both of these are 1 terabytes, but the actual file size available is 930 gigabytes. That's very important. Reason why this is important, especially to some of you who are in the retro gaming community, is let's say I make an image or I fill it up and I give you this image right here, right? Or let's say this one here. I make an image. This one here is a Samsung Evo, 128 gigabyte, but the actual file size on it is 119. Then, of course, we have our lower end, which is an On. I'm not sure who makes this. I bought this at Walmart. It's 128 gigabytes. Actual file size is 116 gigabytes. This is going to be problematic for you, for some of you out there, because if somebody gives you an image based off of this, and let's say it's full to the brim, or obviously it's pretty much going to be totally full anyway. But this is going to have 119. This one's going to be 116. You're not going to be able to use it if you're trying to burn an image to it. Reason that being is because even though both of these say 128, the file size limits on all of these cards, or even if they would say they're 128, or let's say you have 2 of them are 512, 256, they're both going to have different file size limits. And that could be very problematic for those of you downloading, like let's say gaming images, different front ends, or even some type of file size. Now, if I burned an image or made a copy on this one, because this one's 116, and it would be smarter for me to use this one because the actual file size on it is 116, and you plan on using this 128 gigabyte, with the actual file size of 119, then it's a win-win situation. And of course, the reason why that works out is because I am now using the same variant SD card in order to write that file size or that image. However, again, this one only has 116, whereas this one has 119. So your chances of this reading an image from this one is going to be ideal. Now, the other thing that I found out actually not too long ago was even though you have your SanDisk Extremes and your Samsungs, both of these, I know this one's 64, but bear with me. Let's say that this one's 128. Most of the time, these SanDisk Extreme cards have more actual user space available than a Samsung. Now, it's very, very close. Typically, the only difference is between, like, let's say a 128 64 Evo and a SanDisk Extreme is probably a few kilobytes. I even had an issue. I was burning one of my Orange Pi 5 images, and I never really paid attention to these two because they really kind of go hand in hand. But the SanDisk Extreme had more user capacity on it for about, I think it was maybe 200 or 300 kilobytes compared to the Samsung Evo. So again, even though they look, both of these are really high quality. These are my top brands to go to when working on projects. It wouldn't be wise of me to use a SanDisk Extreme, like let's say again that this one's 128, and then expect people to download it using something like this. In that case, you would have to use this particular card or use something much bigger. And then vice versa. Let's say if I burn something on this and it's not working, I would either have to use the same exact card that has the same exact actual file size limits, or I would have to go up to 256. And that's where it could be problematic for a lot of individuals who may not fully understand this. And then, of course, again, too, we still run into that same issue with some of the 1 terabyte drive where it can kind of get a little tricky. Like, let's say somebody gives you a 512 image, 512 gigabyte, but you don't have the right space for it, then you're automatically bumping it up to 1 terabyte because you don't have file storage sizes that are in 600 and 700 gigabyte formats. Now over here we have a very unique situation. So preferably, if any of you who are into retro gaming and making an image, it would be preferable if you can still find these to make something off of a 500 gigabyte SSD. Reason of that being is because with the 500 gigabytes, you have an actual file size limit of about usable of about 465, 466. Now, if I made an image off of this, the actual file size limit that is on this particular card is approximately 470 or about 480 on the 512 Pro. Reason that is because obviously this is 512. And so let's say you download an image or from somebody online that says it's a 512 gigabyte format. It would be smarter for them to put it on this and still claim it or name it as a 512 gigabyte image, but they actually used this. It would not be smart to make an image off of this, call it a 512, and then you have something of this nature where then let's say another 512 card doesn't have the full capacity of this. So for example, I am making an image on this. In fact, I think my image is on this particular drive right now. So it will be released on a 500 gigabyte. However, the actual file size space is for 465, 466. So for any of you downloading it, you could use a drive like this, which will have roughly the same amount of size. Or to be on the safe side, you can still get one of these cards right now for about 30 bucks. And it's guaranteed to fit. You won't have to instantly jump up to about 1 terabyte. And those could be some issues in the community. You guys have seen that happen. Whereas somebody probably made an image off of this kind of card and then it didn't fit and they didn't have anything else. And then they instantly had to jump up to a 1 terabyte drive. And that could be very problematic. So those are just some tips to kind of understand there, but that's pretty much what it is. Then, of course, over here we have our SanDisk Ultra Plus. I don't buy these anymore. They have a low degradation quality. For those of you who aren't familiar with degradation is after so many reads, after so many writes, and even in some cases, if it just sat out too long, I think maybe some of you in the retro gaming community, you've seen this happen. You plug this to your Raspberry Pi, device, you had it for 3 or 4 years, everything was fine, you didn't use it too much, and then you're like, uh-oh, what happened? It's not working. It failed on me. I haven't done anything with it. That's degradation. And typically what you'll see is people mentioning that all these cards are pretty much the same. It doesn't really matter. But those fall well within the other categories that aren't typically going to be on your Best Buy website. They're not going to be on Amazon, but usually is listed with some of the higher grade SD cards that will probably cost you now about maybe $300 or $400. Degradation, magnetic use, resilience to sunlight, resilience to weather. Even if you don't have it in water or something of that nature, you know there's moisture in the air. All of those type of factors can play a result into your actual storage size. Now, I haven't seen any degradation ratings or mentions of some of these SSD drives. I know a lot of these are, you know, supposed to be shockproof. You can see this one here has like a rubbery feel to it, whereas these are more metallic casing. I don't know if that's why they changed it, but again, not everything is created equal. Again, this one here, this is another 256. Off the top of my head, I don't remember the actual file size, but this is a 256. So let's say, for example, the actual file size on this is 245, and then you go get a SanDisk Extreme, and that actual file size is 232. So as you guys can see how the problematic is going to be. Now, if you're an image creator, you're looking to get into it, my best suggestion is to use a lower grade card to make your image, like a Oni, with something that has a 128 gigabyte usage, but the actual file size is 116, instead of using something like this. Now, this is a better rated card, don't get me wrong. This is the ones that I do prefer. But if you're trying to share an image or share a file size and re-image it, it's always better to use either a lower quality device or use something that has lower actual file size capacity, because chances are more people are going to have an actual 512 where they could fit it on, as opposed to something like this. And just a few months ago, I think I bought this at Micro Center. Let me see here. Is this it? Let me see. All right, so and I bought this exactly for that particular reason. We've had some issues now where Pi Shrink really isn't too available, or it causes issues with some of those bills. So as you notice, they typically don't make a lot of the smaller SD cards anymore, but you can still pick these up at a lot of the stores. So even if you just want to kind of create like a little smaller base image, it's better to use maybe like a 16 gigabyte or 8 gigabyte if you can find those. I know I talked to some of the other devs. I asked them, do they shrink anything down? They say no, they don't do anything like that. They just go out and get something like this, and then you release it. So in this particular case, you don't have to worry about if it's going to fit on your 32 gigabyte SSD card. Now, I do have 32 gigabyte cards available. Put one down here. And again, we could fall into that same issue here, where this one may not have the right file size allocation, but I know if I make an image or put a bunch of files on the 16 gigabyte, it'll instantly fit on typically what's common available in most of the stores, or 32. But anyway, I hope you guys got something out of this video. Wanted to make this quick tutorial, or just give you some insight as to some of the SD card usages that are out there. Not all of them are created equal. And again, there are a lot of different things that are, or tech specs that are not included on Amazon, on eBay. You have to go to the manufacturer's website and look up all the functionalities and qualities of these SD cards to make a true informative decision. You don't want to be spending money on something and then it fails on you. In fact, this card, I don't even think it really works anymore. I still have it around. I think sometimes it's finicky, but most of these cards here I've had for a very long time. I've never had any problems with the Evos or the SanDisk Extreme Ultras. In fact, I use these in my drone. I use them in my GoPro because I need quality, I need reliability. And even if you're a retro gamer, and I know a lot of what I say here today is primarily towards the retro gaming community, but even if you're storing documents, your files, you don't want to get anything that's really cheap, because even though they may be cheap in price, like this one, I think this one was only $12. all day, every day, I'm going with the Samsung 512 Pro or Evo or an Extreme SanDisk. And then, of course, all of the other ones that are much more expensive. I mean, like if I was doing something professionally and wanted to make sure that all of my high quality content was really backed up, I'd probably go with one of those 200 gigabyte SDs from Samsung. I probably wouldn't, touch some of these other. I definitely wouldn't put it on an Oni. Not to say that there's anything wrong with the Oni. Never had it with the on SD card. Never had a problems with it. Got it from Walmart, but I'm just not going to put my trust there. So again, guys, keep those things in consideration. Please like this video, share it, whatever you want to do. Let me know what your thoughts are on this particular topic. And again, I know this was more or less kind of pertaining to one particular industry, which is video games, retro gaming interfaces, whatnot. But this still applies to your drones, your regular file sizes, your multimedia. Not all of these storage devices are created equal. So you guys have a good day. I will catch you later. Peace out. Bye-bye.